I am Dr. Aravind Srinivasan, Chief Medical Officer and Director of Projects Aravind Eye Care System. It's a pleasure to be with you all. We are going to be discussing several interesting things in this discussion. It is going to be the intersection of platform and purpose, which is very profound, and joy of doing something beautiful that outlives one's life. The third thing, which is very significant for all of us, is to emotionally connect with the purpose of the organization. And as a leader, communicate to people who are in the organization what they do adds meaning to the organization. And as a leader, connect to each individual in the organization to make the place a place where everybody thrives and everybody enjoys contributing to a larger cause.
Welcome back to part two of our delicious conversation with Dr. Aravind. He is the Chief Medical Officer of Aravind Eye Hospital in Chennai, India. And he's the Director of Projects and the Eye Care System, doing amazing, absolutely amazing work. He has evolved himself, he's evolved his expertise and his organization, and they serve a population of 100 million. That's pretty crazy, huh? An organization that is 5 times more efficient than any competitor. They're doing absolutely insane amounts of work. In 2021, for instance, they extended its outpatient services to more than 4,327,000 people, and was able to provide sight-restoring surgery procedures to over 500,000 people, 50% of which was either free or at a very, very subsidized price. We talked about in part one, we talked about this idea, and that we really want you to grasp, which is the connection between platform and purpose, and that purpose is not always this grandiosity, but it is about using the platform you have. You may have a very small platform, using the platform you have to feed that purpose, to serve that purpose, to make the difference you can make. And how that has been intrinsic inside of the organization that's built the organization, and that everybody in that organization, this is the theme here, is everybody's important. We talked about, Aravind talked about the metaphor of the tree, that we might see the beauty of the tree, the flower, the bloom that comes on the tree, or even the leaves as magnificent and beautiful, but we might often forget that there's a branch, there is a trunk, and there is roots that go into the soil. And we might look at those things as less than, but nothing is complete without that symbiotic relationship. And so finding that in your own life and finding that inside of your own business, and looking at how, particularly if you're a leader, looking at the people you work with or who work for you or inside of the organization, understanding that they're the root of your business. And if you don't take care of the roots, the whole thing will rot. So it's a fascinating area. So in part two of the show here with Dr. Aravind, I want to really talk about the origination of this organization, because it's almost 50 years old. And one of the things that Dr. Aravind was saying in part one is that it's been driven by a purpose, but on top of that, there was a set of values that were maybe not as cool and interesting as they are today. And they were probably ahead of their time. Can you start there? Tell us a little bit about where your uncle started and how he came to form this thing that has grown enormously.
Now, my uncle founded this organization at the age of 58. 58 is the mandatory retirement age in India.
58? Oh, whoa, hold on. That's important for us to know. I did not know that. So he was already, I'm a retired guy.
Yes.
And I'm going to start this.
Yes.
As opposed to I'm going to put my feet up and hang out. Okay, please tell us more. I'm already excited.
No, so he retired from government service, and he was a bachelor. He had suffered in his life. He had arthritis, a bad arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, that left him bedridden for a couple of years in his life. He was dependent on others. He could recall that, and he would say, my life depended on others, courtesy. And that's where he learned empathy, caring for others. Mm-hmm. He was also from a very poor village. He saw a young woman dying during birth of a baby, and the mother died. So he saw a lot of suffering. And India in the 1976 was a very different country. Per
Mhm.
capita income of $150. 80% of the people couldn't fend for themselves. Poverty was rampant. And that was the time he retired. And he was a very spiritual man, he was an evolved soul. So he wanted to go and do his spiritual work. He wanted to
Wow.
go and settle down in Pondicherry, which is the ashram, Sri Aurobindo ashram. The name Aravind comes from the spiritual gentleman, Sri Aurobindo. And but the family, he was the patriarch of the family. He brought his sisters, my father, my aunt, and this subsequently all the other people. So they said, "Oh, you've already done so much in eye care." He was successful as an eye care practitioner within the government ecosystem. When he came out, he
So he was
started in a
in the
very small.
government doing with eye care?
Yes, he was head of
Oh,
the department, the eye
okay.
department. When he came out, he started with 11 beds and a small facility. Even in that 11 beds, he said, even at that stage, he wanted a free hospital. He wanted to continue to cater to the people of the community. And that's how he was known before he retired. And he wanted to do that after retirement. And the first generation of people, people around him, his brothers, sisters, the first set of employees, for the first 10, 15 years, they were slogging, they were sacrificing everything. They did all this job. Today's Aravind is very different. It's globally known. People hear about it, and we are sitting with the famous Dove and talking about it. But not 40 years ago, 45 years ago. I
Mhm.
think that's where the character of the organization, that's when the DNA of the organization was formed. So it is a responsibility for people like us to ensure that we nurture that DNA, we take care of it, and we ensure that that's the path that we are going on. The way we do it keeps changing,
Yes, of
but
course.
the purpose behind it, the core values behind it are eternal.
So was he, in the beginning, was he self-financed?
No, actually, what he did? He went and raised money. He wanted to raise money, and nobody trusted him. So he said that was the only time he went to the community, and he said, I'm going to do my work. That's how this whole cross-subsidizing model came into this world. He was very, very, very ahead of his time, very
Yeah.
phenomenal man. One end of his mind was very evolved spiritually. I have to help my fellow human being. It is important to take care of them. But the other aspect of his mind was very pragmatic. He said, I should learn from McDonald's. How are they able to open up? I'm talking about McDonald's of 70s. They were opened up in different parts of the world, gave the same service, clean toilets, standardization, replication. And he used those words, standardization, replication, because eye care is more important than tossing burgers.
Yes.
And he said, I should be able to learn from them. I should be able to do it. So he was way ahead of his time in the sense he was dying in 2006. Even then, he would speak about the next 100 years, next 50 years. So his soul transcended death. It was not about him,
No.
it was about the people, it was about the society. I think he was able to viscerally feel the suffering of people. And he felt responsible. He felt I should do something for these people who are blind. I know what to do. I have to get this solution of vision to more people. So that's how this organization came. That kind of a mind, which was a very vibrant mind, very giving. And then
So it
people
was very
around him followed.
collaborative as well.
Very collaborative. And I should also tell you this, it's not about the family and the 20 people around him. No, it's not that at all. People from US, there was a foundation called Seva Foundation. People from around the world. I think that's another thing which you see when you're, I'm sure you see this all the time, right? When you see there is good work, just forces in the world align towards it. And they
Mhm.
make these things happen. So sometimes you feel, the problem with purpose is people feel I have to do everything on my own. No, not at all. You just
Right.
start the journey. Just the first step. People will show you the next step. People will come and join you. Maybe you will walk for 10, 20 steps alone, but people come. If you are clear about it, if you are honest about it, if you're sincere about it, there is a joy that comes within you, but there are people who are waiting for you. You will be the beginner of a movement. And that's what Dr. V was.
So when he passed, when did you say that was? What year?
2006.
2006. Where were you in the organization at that point?
I was the administrator of the Madurai Aravind Eye Hospital. I had joined Aravind in 1993
Right.
as a
So,
resident.
when you have such a force of a human being at the head of something, and I'm not talking about that as being this dictatorial, demanding force, which oftentimes it is in these multi-generational families, but that's not the man you're describing to me at this point. But nonetheless, the gravitas of his presence, in his deep spiritual and his deep business and deeply driven by purpose, oftentimes that's the collapse of a system, because this primary person who is this force of nature is suddenly removed by nature itself, by age, is suddenly removed. Can you talk to us a little bit about that transition?
I think he was a wise person, and he realized that. And see, one of the things which is very interesting, Dow, is he started at 58. He was not a player when he started. The competition comes when you're a player. He was a coach when he started.
Right.
So he was a coach all through. That's how he started this organization. So he was not running, he was not playing, he was not looking for his position or recognition. So he was constantly building people. The joy with him was, how do I build more people? So when he passed away, even today, I feel he's here. I don't think he has passed away. Right now, we both are talking as if he's sitting here. We're talking about his work. And his work is here for all of us to see. And it's growing, continuing. I'll share a quote with you, which resonates. Somebody threw a stone in a pond and a pebble in a pond, and the ripples keep growing. Sometimes you forget who threw the pebble.
Yes.
You don't know because you're seeing a ripple, but you realize someone has thrown a pebble.
Yes.
That's why the ripple is there. I think that's the power of people like Dr. V, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, people of those, that kind of vintage. They are a very different breed of people. They don't go away.
Right. So you don't think the transition was particularly difficult because his presence lived on in such a profound way?
But interestingly, the leadership of the organization from an execution standpoint changed in 1997 to another chairman of the organization. Actually, and now the other person, Dr. Namparamal Swami, was the chairman. He said, I'm going to hold this position only for 10 years. I'm going to give it when I'm 70. So that has become, that's how the leaders have to set the guidelines. So he set the guideline. The next leader set the guideline. Now it's the third leader in position. So that is, people appreciate that. I want to play the game well, but my time will come to an end, and I want others to play the game well.
That's really important, because I find that a lot of times, particularly in multi-generational family business, the leader wants to hold the baton till their last breath. And as a result, they're not prepared. And so when they die, there's a scramble for power, there's a scramble for authority, and there's a scramble for understanding what the role actually is, because they were always kept on the sidelines. Whereas if my time is coming and it has a maximum time, then I have to prep. I have to make sure that the person who takes over after me really knows how to carry this vision forward. So it comes from powerful.
It also comes from a deep inadequacy. Your whole identity comes from only your position and what you do. That's not very healthy.
Well, it's not purpose. It's identity, purpose. Right?
It's
ego.
You
and I talked about this in our previous conversation, is that many people in leadership roles are not running their lives or their businesses on purpose. They're running them on identity, on ego. So this is who I am. No, that's your role. Your role is to make the difference in that role and do the best you can, but that's not who you are. And so a lot of these people, when their career ends, they don't know who they are anymore. They've lost that. And that's sad.
True. One of the points that has helped me a lot in this way of thinking is, somebody taught me this, don't think your life is linear. I'll finish this and do something. Look at your life as a circumferential thing, where you're running from, when you're a CEO, you're running in this circle. Try to seed something beyond that so that you have a purpose beyond this.
Yes.
You know, if you look at it linear, oh, I'm the CEO, I'm nothing after that. That's not fair.
No.
Because, you know, it's your own son and daughter, it's your own family members, it's your own subordinates need to be having an opportunity to do what they want to do. You know, so I like this idea of, you know, looking at life as, you know, you jump from one thing to the other.
Well, one of the things that you and I talked about is the Jewish proverb around Adam 1 and Adam 2. Yeah. And I think that pretty much talks about what you were just talking about. Tell us a little bit more about that.
See, I think this is something which was my own self-realization, and then I landed upon the Adam 1, Adam 2 concept. So one is the resume virtue, you know, what you all accumulate, you know, which is a success paradigm. You know, what is happening to me? How well am I recognized? What is my position? What is in it for me? And that's probably the first half of life, you know, 40 years, 45 years. The second half of is the significance paradigm, Adam 2. It's the eulogy virtue. You know, what are you leaving behind? You know, the world has given so much to you. You're fortunate. You're very fortunate few. You know, like we spoke about that $100,000, 100,000 pounds, you're 0.1% of the world. People who died to be in your position. And with all that, if you're scarce with them, if you're only adding to your net worth, if you're only adding to your net worth, and that is very important. In fact, this is a quote which I really like. Success is what happens to you. Significance is what happens through you.
Yes.
I think that allowing that through you to happen, because you have to allow it to happen, because it has to flow. It has to be natural, because you spoke about the soul smiling. You can't force the soul to smile.
No.
The joy, it can't be forced. Happiness can be forced.
Yes.
Joy has to, you know, it has to be in abundance.
Yeah.
Your soul has to have an abundance that will pour itself out. That's alchemy.
It is. You know, as Parthasarathy taught me in the Vedanta, let your love be a radiator, not a boundary. Right? It has to radiate out. Let your purpose, because love and purpose to me are interchangeable. It's me. That's not the truth. It's just my truth. But it's like, let it radiate out from you, not be a boundary that's only given to certain people or certain situations. And I'm often reminded of that to have compassion with somebody who pisses me off or upsets me in some way. It's like, no, hold on a second. Like, understanding that every human being I meet has a purpose that they potentially don't even know, but that everybody I meet is in some kind of pain that I definitely don't know. And that this behavior, including my own when it's less than brilliant, is an act to cover up that pain. And so if I can come at that with a place of compassion for the suffering, then I can potentially ease the suffering, if only by validation of the suffering. Because sometimes that's the validation is all that's needed. Like, I think that most people are walking around in the world saying, could you just see me? Could you just acknowledge me? Like, I don't get people who don't talk to taxi drivers. I don't get people who don't talk to people in elevators. I don't like that, because I know, because I had very chronic depression many years ago and was suicidal. And I know that my life could be changed with a hello. Like, I could feel like the world is a piece of shit and nobody cares about me, and you know, and be totally wallowing in my own self-pity. And then somebody would just say, I love your shoes, or nice shirt, or how you doing today? Like, it didn't even have to be anything big. And I suddenly be like, yeah, maybe people are all right. You know, and now I'm sort of recognized as this person who really sees the beauty in people, because it's those little things. It's that moment of taking the time. And I think that oftentimes leaders forget that. They're so focused on these big ideas and where we're going and what we're going to do that we forget, like you were saying earlier, we forget that the roots of the tree keep the tree healthy. And we have to nurture those roots. And those roots are in momentary conversations. Instead of just, I'd like a latte, it's like, how's your day? And I'd like a latte. And how have people been with you today? And who treated you well today? And tell me, while you're making my coffee, just tell me a story about somebody who was great today with you. They recounting that story lets it register in their brain and move forward. And I wonder how many people in your organization, which is such a profoundly purposeful foundation, I wonder how many of those people go home every day with that little nugget of joy because they're part of a machine it is a machine, a very efficient machine that is serving a purpose that's so great. Because a purpose-driven organization, I tell the leaders I work with all the time, a purpose-driven organization is not giving you purpose. You already got the purpose. It's giving the purpose to everybody who is involved in your organization, whether they're a buyer, whether they're a supplier, or whether they're the people who work with you. And it's like, I'm part of this. I'm part of making, there's a wonderful story of a man who gets off a train in a city in Europe, and he walks along and he sees a man who is laying bricks. And he goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm laying bricks." Oh, okay. And he walks a little further along the wall that the man's building and sees another bricklayer. And he goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm building a beautiful cathedral." And he walks a little further and he sees another man. He says, "What are you doing?" Doing exactly the same thing. And the man says, "I'm building a place that honors the creative force of the universe, that honors God." All three doing the same thing, only one of them is purpose-driven, right?
I think one of the things here is, as leaders, we are all a little higher up in the organization. We see a lot more than what others see. So it's the leader's responsibility to tell people about the purpose, about the joy, what they see, what they understand, what they appreciate. Because when you're doing the mundane, regular work, you can miss the joy. You can miss, you're probably not able to connect the dots. So the leader's job is to connect the dots. Tell the people what they do. Make it count to them when they go back home. I think those are stories, these stories that you shared. These are very powerful stories,
Yes.
In our organization, you don't have to look around, right? Every day, about 2,000 people are getting surgery, and there is enough and more stories. But a leader has to take it. Tell them it is because of your action, and that's the truth.
Of course it is. Of course it is. I get another example is that during the pandemic, we stood outside and we banged pots at 7 p.m. to thank the front workers. Who's banging pots now? I'm so upset about this. Right? I get really pissed off about this. Who's banging pots now? Those frontline workers are still working frontline. Who's banging pots for the teachers, for the garbage collectors, for the truckers, for the people who are really essential, who are always the lowest paid on the rung? These are the lowest paid people.
But flip it a little bit, When you're saying who, I understand where you're coming from. But people who are privileged, people who are having a higher platform, it is not about, we are the people who have to do that.
That's my point.
You're absolutely right. And
that's my point.
The point. You're absolutely right.
We've got to recognize that, and I really do like that metaphor. We've got to recognize, who is the roots of the tree that allow me this fruit? Who is the roots of that tree? Who is the mycelium complex that feeds the roots of that tree?
What's interesting, Dov, is everything about the tree can die. The root will regenerate.
Yes.
So sometimes we feel when you're at the top, you're controlling everything. You are perishable. You can perish.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. The root can regrow all kinds of things, but if you're the top, you're done. Yeah, they're coming to cut you down, buddy.
Absolutely. All you need is one strong breeze. You're down.
Exactly. That's a very good metaphor. So now, as the Aravind system moves forward, you have a further vision. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
See, right now we are catering to 100 million people, and that is only through Aravind, our direct service. Aravind also ventured into manufacturing intraocular lens, sutures, pharmaceutical products. So it exports to about 160 countries, those products. So today it's estimated that 30% of all cataract surgeries in the world, there will be at least one Aravind product. So Dr. V ideas, the Dr. V's vision is today available to close to 2 billion people in this world, because 1/3 of the cataract surgery in the world. See, and he was born in a very small village, and the hospital was started in a very small town. That's the beauty of it, right? It does not matter where you start, where you are, where you began. But when the world recognizes who you are, and if your soul is truthful, if it has the power, the world comes to you. And Arvind's plans are to reach more people, touch more people. Through Aravind by itself, we probably would like to go from 100 million to 200 million people, and also get the manufacturing to supply at an affordable cost to more people. And also Aravind has another arm, which is the consulting arm. What Aravind has done is not to create a unique surgery or anything. Now, what you said, look at why we are 5 times more efficient, right? A simple factor.
Yeah.
We are only about 30,000 ophthalmologists for 1.5 billion people. US with about 280 million population has about 40,000 ophthalmologists. So unless we are efficient, we won't be able to take care of our people. And with Dr. V as a leader who said every person who needs vision has to have a good vision. Sight should not be an optional thing. Sight should be a basic necessity. So how do you do that? You do that by creating better systems. I'll tell you a secret of the organization. People see us as an eye care provider. We are a logistics provider. Eye care is incidental. Imagine we'll have to bring in 20,000 people every day, shift 2,000 people for surgery every day, feed about 5,000 to 6,000 people every day. We have to give shelter to about 3,000, 4,000 people every day. So we need to have a strong logistics play. And incidentally, we do eye care.
Yeah, you said that to me before. I want to stop because I want people to grasp that. Like those numbers you just threw out there are insanely high of, taking care of people, of the surgeries, of feeding people, of housing people. And it's a logistical nightmare in my reality. It's a logistical nightmare. If I had to do that, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed just even thinking about it. And you say, but eye care or the cataract surgery is kind of incidental. So it's in many ways what I'm hearing from the consulting side is it's formulaic. Like your uncle said, we need to learn from McDonald's. It's formulaic. And so we take that and we lay that onto hat manufacturing. I'm making up stuff, obviously. Right? Hat manufacturing, or we lay it over into the restaurant business, or we lay it over onto some other industry.
Yes.
And that's what you've been guiding companies around. Is that correct?
Absolutely. See, look at me as a surgeon. I'm trained for about 13, 14 years to become a surgeon. So I'm well trained. This is what I do. Everybody else is trained. That's why I said surgery is incidental, because that's what we are trained to do. We've spent a decade and a half getting trained. But the problem, what happens is people are not trained in logistics.
No.
People are not trained in bringing this whole supply chain that you need to build. So I think that is where the beauty comes. You bring the most skillful technique and you load it to a high throughput system. The cost comes down significantly. The throughput increases, and healthcare is all about fixed cost. About 80% is fixed cost. So if you can increase the throughput, your per unit cost comes down significantly. So that's how Aravind takes advantage of the economies of scale. And that's how we are able to do what we are doing.
So when you do this at a consulting level, where do you see that the biggest challenges become with other companies, maybe even other industries, in doing this work?
One is leadership, that definitely, because they have to have a willingness to serve the community. They have to be having the willingness, because the top of the pyramid does not have volume. It's a small subsegment in India. It's not a very rich country. So it is in the lower end of the pyramid. The bottom of the pyramid is where there is a lot more patients. So they should be able to learn to serve that people. They should have an interest in serving that people. And once that's very essential. Second is they have to learn to become trusting themselves. They have to learn to become self-reliant because
Yes.
they're used to getting donations from someone else. They have to learn, no, I can solve the problem in the community to one set of segment of the population, and I can offer something for the next set of population. So I think these are some of the ingredients. And then there are tactics that you use or strategies that you use. How to use your operating theaters, what kind of skills you bring in, what kind of training your people need to have, what kind of operating theater equipments you need, instruments you need. You have to standardize everything. That's what we try to share with.
So the interesting piece for me is the crossover here. So you're standardizing everything, which often seems like sanitizing everything. And that in a lot of, particularly in organizations in North America, when you standardize and sanitize, you lose purpose, right? It becomes the opposite of what you're doing. It becomes like, well, we've got to make the dollar, we got to make the time, we've got to be efficient, we've got to be effective. And you, Mr. X, are just a cog in the machine. We don't really give a shit about you. This is the logistics of what we're trying to do. Talk to us about bridging that gap, because I think that's a battle inside the head of a North American or a first world CEO.
I think that's the leader's job. Leaders have to give, I've always found this interesting. You go to a basketball team or a baseball team and you realize, there is one captain under whom they all keep on losing, the same set of players. And there is another guy who comes, they start winning. The same set of guys, the same ingredients, the same set of training. But what is the one change that has happened is as a leader who is kind of giving meaning to the whole thing. I think that's a very essential element of leadership, because it's not everybody can be at the mountaintop. When you're at the mountaintop, it's very important for you to tell people what you're seeing, what you're enjoying, what you're saying, and then say, be thankful to them because of you that is there. And we all know not everybody can come to the top. There are only very few positions that can be there. So it's giving purpose down below the organization. Somebody said this very interesting thing, right? It's like a pyramid organizations are. Don't think it's a vacuum in between. It's people. That's where your taxi driver is there, your school teacher is there. Unless you start nurturing from the top, like the leaf bringing chlorophyll, you need to nurture. I think as a leader, that's what I've realized. Because the more you go up in the organization, the less you do. But the more you have to be emotionally connected to the team.
Beautifully put. That's exactly it. The more you have to be emotionally connected. And oftentimes in business, we become less emotionally connected as we get to the top. Excuse me. One of the things I will say to the leaders I work with is that the bigger you are at the top, the less chance you have of getting truth, because people are relying upon you for the way of life, right? Their pay, etc., and their families' care. But having that emotional connection to your people and training the people you lead who lead others to invest in that emotional connection is so important. As we finish, one of the things you talked to me about was we got to put emphasis on getting back to the parts of ourselves we've forgotten, and how we keep growing into who we've forgotten we were. And it sounds kind of like a little bit of a flip, because you're growing into who you were that you've forgotten before. And most of us are saying, well, that was in the past and let's shove that back and I'm going to grow in something else. Talk to us a little bit about that as we finish up.
I think we all have a combination of healthy combination of ego. That's the first part, Adam 1. We want to be somebody, prove ourselves. We work hard to get here and whatever you do. And then you kind of get there. Then you realize that you have not gotten there in isolation. A lot of people have lent their shoulders, their abilities, their earnings, whatever they have contributed to go up. So when you go up, you kind of realize you are suspended from the top, but not realizing that people are supporting you from the bottom.
Right.
So I think that is what is the most essential thing. It is not, I think as you grow up the top, it is not what you tell, it's what you're thinking. It's the thoughts that you are in your head. What is guiding you? What is running your day-to-day philosophy? I think that's where we need to work, is what I have found. Constantly appreciating your own thinking, not trying to become someone else, act something, be who you are, be natural. I'm not able to articulate it very well, but I saw that in Dr. V. It didn't matter what the scale of the organization, the size of the organization. He was childlike. There was a joy. There was a joy of doing something beautiful. He was emotionally connected to the purpose. And that is why we are still talking as if Dr. V is sitting next to me. I think that's a great example of what leaders are, have to be. You have to constantly tune into the joy and not become distant, not become this person who is, for want of a word, who is like a moron.
Yeah.
He's not even accessible, can't speak much. People are afraid of that individual. What is all this decades of work in your life to become a loner sitting in some individual office, not knowing what is being done? That's not the purpose, right? The purpose is the joy of doing something.
Do you know the story of the golem?
Story of
the golem?
No.
The story of the golem. It's from Hebrew and Jewish stories, right? And it's about how a rabbi creates a man out of clay. He's called a golem. That Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein based on this story.
Okay.
Right. So, and the golem is this creature who is soulless. He's created by man. And I think that it's really interesting to me that very often a powerful leader is a golem. He has been created by men. He's been created by the workforce, and he's kind of soulless at the top. And I the sadness of the story of Frankenstein, if you actually read the original Mary Shelley story, is that he craves a soul, right? And all he is persecuted and feels like he's going to be attacked. And I look at so many leaders who feel persecuted and feel like they're always going to be attacked, and they crave the soul. The only difference is their soul was already there. They have locked it away in this climbing the ladder thing to get to the top, and they've forgotten that they hold the key to the cage that holds their soul. And so don't become a golem leader, but instead be connected in the way that you've spoken about.
Let me tell you a small story if you have the time. This is how I believe this is how they catch monkeys in Thailand. They put a small, there's an opening there, they put some peanuts there. Yeah, the monkey catches the fist and leaves it. And a lot of times, many of us as leaders are like that.
Mm-hmm.
Letting go. Maybe we will become much larger persona. How do we know? Because we are holding on to something small.
Yeah, the monkey fist is a great lesson for all of us. And it's very easy to cling to what's familiar rather than stepping into the magnificence that awaits us all. Aravind, it has been a genuine pleasure and an honor, sir. I'm deeply grateful that you took the time. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Again, please tell people where they can find out more about you, your organization, whether that's the eye care or the consulting, whatever it might be.
Yeah, www.aravind.org. So pleasure talking to each one of you. Wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, for you, dear listener, we, of course, will give you all of those URLs where you can find Aravind. You're also on LinkedIn and some other places that people can reach out to you as well. So we'll make sure that you have all that. Of course, we'll put it all in the show notes. And remember that those who control the meaning for the tribe, and that was that was exemplified beautifully. Those who control the meaning for the tribe control the movement of that tribe. If you control the meaning for your tribe, if you hold your purpose and you share that purpose on a daily basis and you live it, eat it, sleep it, breathe it, you control the movement of your entire tribe. And if you really want to tap into that, that's what I do. That is my work. I show businesses, teams, and leaders how to harness their emotional source code to move their tribe, because unified actualized meaning is the single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for all individuals and companies. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about that axis between your purpose and your platform. That your purpose is always there, even if you seem to be of a low platform or a low purpose. Understand that just because you maybe don't have the prestige in the role that you're in right now, that doesn't mean you don't have a purpose. It means you can find your purpose, and you can also elevate your platform. You're born into something, but you're not stuck there. You can evolve. And once you tap into your purpose, you will evolve. And as Dr. Aravind said, once you live from that place of joy and purpose, you're a magnet. You pull people to you because people look for purpose. They want that. They want meaning. It's part of the human condition. We want to be tribal with people who have meaning. You get to make that difference. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I want you to go back and listen to part 1 again. If you didn't catch it, if you just came in part 2, there's so many beautiful diamonds scattered throughout both of these episodes. I encourage you to go back and please write to Dr. Aravind, write to me. Let us know what you got out of the show. We're always delighted to hear from you. I'm Dovbaron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest meaning to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, in your life, and in your leadership impact. And I am out.